Good afternoon, guys. I'm Chris, and welcome back to this Wednesday's episode of Rift Amps. Two Rock traditional, what is it? Classic reverb signature, not the traditional clean. That's the other one, isn't it? This one has come in for. It's got a hum when it's in standby mode. Very interesting. A customer complaint: hum on standby. Now, does that mean that the hum disappears when you take it out of standby, or does that mean that the hum is still there, but it's just masked by the operational noise of the amplifier? I don't know. No idea. But he says compared to his traditional clean, that's why I had that in my head. That one doesn't do it. Now, he said this has always done it since he's owned it from new, but it's only when he got his other one that he realised that actually it was quite hummy in standby mode. Very interesting. And so he did email to Rock, and they said there is a snubber cap, an anti-pop cap across the standby switch, and that might be faulty. So they said snip it out to see if it makes a difference. He said he tried that and it hasn't. So he's then, rather than send it across the pond, to be fair to Two Rock, they actually offered to fix it for him free of charge if he covered the shipping there and back. But shipping amps to the States and back fully insured, as you can imagine, is quite expensive. And as this customer is quite local to me, he asked me if I would have a look at it. So I'm quite happy to go through and see if we can help him out, see if we can get this thing sorted and fixed, work out what's going on. I think what we should do is have a listen to the hum, see if we can work out what frequency it is. That will give us a good indication of where we should start looking. But Two Rock Classic Reverb Signature, these 50 watt, are they 100 watt? Two output valves, so probably 50 watt. He's owned it from new. I think I've already said that. I think he said he bought it in 2019. It had a new set of valves at some point, but it hasn't really been looked at since then. So he also wants me, to go through it, give it a good bill of health, etc., etc., etc. You know the score. But yeah, I'm always impressed by Two Rocks from the outside. And I'm not saying the insides are terrible, because they're absolutely not. But when you look at a Two Rock from the outside, the fit and finish and quality is pretty obvious, right? These are well presented amplifiers. And it's little things like, I'll zoom you in and show you. If we take the nut on the on standby switch, they've got it perfectly north and south. And for the OCD in all of us, and it's the same over on the input side. Look, oh, actually no, it's not. Ignore me. Shot myself in the foot, really, didn't I? But my point still stands, is that they just look like a premium product, and they feel, and it just presents in that way, which is really nice, because there are some very expensive amplifiers out there which are no better than, a secondary school or a high school electronics project. So anyway, enough about that. Let's confirm customer complaint, and then we'll go from there. Right, Q&A time then. Just building Elysium number 173. 173, yeah. I couldn't even read my own serial number then. So where are we? What are we doing? We've got loads of comments and questions this week. Not going to get through them all, so we'll see where we are. Starting with Pothos. What 10-inch speaker would you recommend for a 6G2? That's the brown panel Princeton. I'm about to build one for home use, so it will be used mostly on pretty low volume. What speaker? So please take what I say with a pinch of salt on this, because I'm not a fan of 10-inch speakers on their own. I think they work wonderfully in multiples, 2s or 4s, even 3s, like the Bandmaster. But on their own, I think there's that they just don't quite do. They're too much of a halfway house without, the transient attack of like an 8-inch speaker, or the full depth and richness of a 12-inch. So I think they kind of, on their own, they kind of miss something. So yeah, I'm not overly a fan of doing a single 10-inch. But what would I recommend? Well, I really like the WGS G10A, which is the Alnico, the American voiced Alnico that they do. I really do like that one. So that would probably be my recommendation. The 10-inch Celestine Gold, you have to be careful with those in the way that you break them in, because if you don't break them in correctly, they can remain quite stiff and quite too focused. So you've really got to put a lot of power through them and properly smash them to get them broken in properly. Then they sound wonderful. But if you don't break them in properly, in that the initial 5 or 6 hours of playing, they tend to remain quite stiff for the rest of their life. So you've got to be careful with the 10-inch Gold. And when they're stiff, they do sound quite dark. But break them in properly, they open up quite nicely. So that's, probably a 10-inch Alnico WGS G10A or a 10-inch Celestine Gold, if broken in properly. Do you remember I said, please give me recommendations for what we should call Tremolo's son? Tremolo is one of the farm cats here. She is a mama. She's had quite a few babies. There were 6 at one point. We're down to just 2. Tremolo herself and her son, who's only got one eye. So we haven't got a name for the son. So I said, please, in the comments, let me know. Mulligan SJ said Bigsby is the name for the cat. And you know what? That's the best one I've ever heard. Tremolo and Bigsby. Brilliant. Love that. And that's been approved by Mrs. Rift as well. So that's what we're going to go for. Trem and Biggs out there. Love that. Thank you very much for everyone who gave a suggestion. But Bigsby, of course, is the winner. Okay. On the bench, I've got a microphone up against the speaker. I've also got FFT plot running. Link in the description below. And I can't hear an issue. I'll turn up the audio. I'll boost the audio now so you can hear what is going on. But there really isn't a hum. I will flick it out of standby mode so you can hear the operational noise. We'll turn all the controls down first. But I'm not hearing a noise in standby mode. In fact, I can hear the workshop clock over any hum that's going on. But anyway, audio being boosted now. That's actually a tractor outside. That hum you can see, that's not the amp. Well, I don't know. I'm going to have to ring the customer because there's no hum there. The FFT plot is picking up the noise of the tractor and stuff driving around outside over any noise level in the amp. So yeah, I'm a bit confused now. I'm going to have to call him, see what's going on. He did show me a video, so if I can get him to send that across, I'll include it in the footage and then show you. But at the moment, this amplifier, pulling 56 watts out the wall, no fault found. So as you saw from that customer video, definitely a standby hum there, which wasn't present on his traditional clean, but it's not demonstrating that in the workshop. I spoke to the customer on the phone. He did try the amp in various different main sockets, shared and separate. Went through the whole process, but on his video, as demonstrated, there's definitely a hum. But there's not here, and the power in my workshop isn't particularly filtered. You know, it's an old farm building, quite a long way from the local transformer. So yeah, but it's quiet as a mouse, really. So what we're going to do? Well, the only thing we can do really is he wants me to, as I said, give the amp a health check. He wants a new pat test on it, which I'll do. We're going to reverse his removal of the snubber cap across the standby switch. Make sure that's all good. Check the bias on the output valves. Blah, 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 blah. So let's get on. Let's get on and do that. I haven't had my lunch yet. I'm starving. But we'll crack on. So apparently, Rock give you a 5-year warranty on their amplifiers. I didn't know that, but that's pretty good, right? 5 years. Now, I like brands which stand behind their product, right? Now, you could look at it two ways if you're being 6L6s. If dual rectifier as well. If you're being mean, you might say, well, you know, it's got a long warranty on it because they expect it to fail and therefore they want to look after you. Well, I think that's commendable. Of course an amp eventually is going to have a problem. Of course it is. It's a high heat, high vibration device. Yeah, obviously they want to look after it. The worst thing is when manufacturers put the minimum warranty on them, or at least don't offer to look after you outside of the warranty period. That annoys me a little bit. Whether, you know, I'm talking of the big brands here. You know, the boutique ones, guys, you know, built by a guy or a couple of guys, always look after you. So yeah. Anyway, I have waffled enough. Let's get this chassis out. Is there anything I need to be aware of? No. One. Cup washers with flat washers underneath as well. Very nice. Goes back to what I was saying about these things actually being built with sturdiness and durability in mind. At least on the outside anyway. I haven't looked inside yet. When was the last time I had a 2 Rock in? When was that? It was on the channel, definitely. I can't remember. My brain today. Anyway. Here we go. Do we see anything fun? Not particularly. It's all pretty standard 2-rock Dumble style stuff, really, isn't it? I'm not going to be going through this and doing a full circuit analysis. There's no hum from this amp. But we do need to rectify whatever the customer did. I can see it. Okay. What are you snagging on? Is it the reverb cables? It is the reverb cables. Red is left. Can you remember that? The left socket from the rear is the red wire. Here we go. Right, one moment, please. Right, so what am I looking for? Here we go. Up in this corner, that's the cap that he's snipped out. What is it? Just a ceramic disc, sorry. Complete world of my own then. So he's just... Oh, wait, hang on. What did he do? So he snipped it, but he did say he tried desoldering it first. But I don't see any evidence of that. So we can just resolder that into place. 2 kilovolt cap as well. Good for them. Good for them. Apart from that, what else do I need? Bias pot, which is probably this one here. What's that going to? High-low switch. Yeah, that is the bias pot. So we'll check the bias. We'll get the CompuBias bias on it, see where it's biased up to at the moment. But I'm not going to touch the rest of it. Serial number inside says... hold on, it's American, isn't it? So that's the January through March, April the 11th, 2017, number 41. You see that down there? It's not the 4th of November. So he said he bought this amp 2019, around that time. So he's had it quite a while. So yeah, that date makes sense. You know, built by 2-rock, shipped to the dealer. Don't know how long the dealer had it, but then obviously customer then bought it. So cool. Anything else that we see? Anything that's that immediately jumps out as being weird? Does that look wrinkly to you? I've never seen an orange drop with wrinkles on, like ripples like that. Do you see? Maybe I've just never looked at them in that kind of detail. Have I got an orange drop? Oh, do you know what? They are. Because I don't use them. I don't look at them. Here's one. And it is. It's got like that wavy. I've never seen that before. Never noticed it. There you go. Get focused. There you go. Go on, learning something new. All right, I'm going to fix this cap, stick it all back together, or bias it up, clean the pots while we're in there, do some basic stuff. He's paying his bench fee, so he's going to get his time's worth, isn't he? And then we will just, hang on, yeah, let's check those caps out. Any of those caps leaking? IC caps in a 2-rock. Is that right? You would have thought they'd use something a bit more sturdy, wouldn't you? A bit more robust. Although, they seem to be right. And it's not humming. Cool. Anyway, I'll stop waffling. I'll get that fixed. And we can get it back in the cabinet. 3BDT. I do love these Gorva 3-pole double throw switches. They are, for the pedals, they are just wonderful. Absolutely fantastic. DH says, would you ever build something like a 200 watt DR201 type amp? Has anyone ever asked you to do that? I realise that the iron would be the expensive part, but that would be an awesome series. I like the headroom one can get from a high power amp. Thanks, Chris. Love the vids. Yes, I get asked all the time. I get asked all the time to do that kind of stuff, and I go back to them with a quote, and a lot of them recoil in horror and say, I'll leave it, thanks. But yeah, I do get asked all the time. I would love to build one. So if you're interested, do get in touch. But I'm telling you now, if you want it built with really high quality components, built by me, hand wired from scratch, then it's going to cost you. It ain't going to be cheap. So, but anyway, I'd love to do one if you are interested. Jude Lee says, don't be lumping Canada into North American legislation. No, you're right. I'm absolutely sorry. I should have done that. Canada's generally has a lot stricter regs than America does, as in the United States of America. So I do apologise for that one. You're absolutely right. But you know what I meant, though. I didn't mean to cause offence. I'm just, What I'm trying to point out is that the UK and the EU has, rightly so, I will add, some very strict safety regulations, which seem to shock a lot of North American manufacturers when they try and sell their amps over here, because they've never come across that level of legislation before. And in terms of what you have to do, Kevin the Just, regular commenter, nice one, Kev. Thanks for your comment. Says, okay, I'll bite. Tell us more about your sunbathing buddy. New combo in the catalogue? No, actually the opposite. It's a really old one. That is a 2x12 combo cab that we had made when we were doing the very initial prototypes of the Ainsley Lister Signature. Because that originally was going to be a 2x12 combo, like his old Marshalls. So that's what that is. He recently gave that cabinet back to me. He was actually using it as a spare speaker cab in his home studio, but he's having a clear out and said, did I want it back? I said, yeah, because I want to build something into that. I want to do something completely ridiculous into it. But it takes a 100-watt chassis, right? 100-watt plexi style chassis, that cab. So I could build all sorts into there. Yeah, I've always wanted to do a dual output transformer JTM 45-100. Do you remember? So the original JTM 45-100s had 2 output transformers, and I've always wanted to do one of those. So, and that would fit in that cab. It'd be absolutely ridiculously heavy. I mean, but why not? Let's have a bit of fun, right? So maybe I'll do something like that. But that's what it was. I just wanted something out there with me, just for a bit of eye candy. Mystery box time. This has just turned up with the postman, and I'm generally not expecting anything. I wasn't. I've checked through the emails. It did have the customer's name on the front, which I've now blanked out just in case it appears on camera. But I've searched my emails, searched my messages, can't find anything that says this amp or what this is, if it's an amp at all. God, I can't even talk this morning. So I've no idea. It is a genuine mystery box, packed well. So should we get into it and have a look and see what it is? Because I have no idea. I'm hoping it's lots of treats. There is a letter inside. Oh, okay. Hello, Chris. Please find enclosed the PR18 head and the old tubes in envelope. Simply lift out the top section of the packet, the bit with the old tubes, and find the head. I think he means the chassis below. As discussed on the phone, I don't remember that, the amp has all sorts of snaps, cracks and popples, cold joints somewhere perhaps. Please let me know if there's anything you recommend changing / upgrading, etc. Okay, and there's the cabinet. Very nice. Could I please purchase a couple of the bolts that hold the head chassis in place from you? Only 2 of the 4 long screws have bolts on them. when I was taking the head out. I would just like to add that your work/craftsmanship is absolutely incredible. Never have I seen such wonderfully clean and organised work. It puts my 2 Fender hand-wired reissues to shame. Well, that's very kind of you. At some point, I'd like to discuss with you servicing both my Fenders and perhaps upgrading a few components. Maybe even some tidying up of the spaghetti. One is a 64 Custom Deluxe reissue, and the other is the 62 Chris Stapleton reissue. Hope this finds you well, and look forward to hearing from you from Marcin. Well, there you go. Perhaps I did speak to someone on the phone, but I don't remember. So let's have a look then. What have we got? Cool. So we've got a Jiffy bag, which I presume has got all the valves inside. Excellent, good news. Okay. Now that's how you pack an amp. That's impressive. Good for you. And inside is one of my amplifiers. Quite an old one, I can tell you that. PR18. PR18? PR18. Yeah, God. Okay. All right. A lot of you seem to like the Kunststoff Winkelstecker, as I suspected most of you would, because we are, as I said, we're all 12-year-old children. Peter says, I forgot most of what I learned in German class 25 years ago, except for Schweineschulterbraten, which is that roast pork shoulder or yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. So there was one phrase that we were taught, and actually my mother insisted on using it as well, which was it was "Darf ich bitte auf die Toilette gehen," which translated is "Please may I go to the toilet." And of course, if you're using that in German lessons in school, that's what they wanted. Now that one stuck with me. "Darf ich bitte auf die Toilette gehen." Excuse the pronunciation. Now, I remember using that once in Germany, and the chap looked at me as though I committed like some mortal sin, because it's a really formal and correct way of talking. Of course, that's not what you do in real life, is it? And he said, it was very much. He said to me, it was very much like. Well, it's exactly what it is. It's learning German from a textbook rather than conversationally. So, yeah, never use that phrase again. But that one stuck with me. It's funny, isn't it? I do find German fascinating. As I said, it's mainly the way that they... I can't remember what the word for it now is, but the way they construct words and just tack extra words onto it to make one long word, especially in descriptors. I can't remember what it's called now. But it always fascinates me. But yeah, my mum's mum, my grandmother, she would occasionally just start speaking German. Halfway through a sentence would just switch to German, and you'd be like, "Hold on a minute, what? Hey." But there you go. That's why I tend to understand it, as I said before, to understand it better than I speak it. So I do apologise to everyone who does speak German, hearing me butchering it, but yeah, it does make me laugh. Schweineschulterbraten. Lilas Pap 80 says, regarding the J20, if a 5x3 rectifier and a pair of 6V6s are used instead of a GZ34 and 6L6s, I guess the mains transformer will run cooler. Correct, yeah, it will run within its design limitations. Would really appreciate a video talk on things that are not implemented according to current UK EU safety legislations. This could really help to fix these potential dangerous issues before it's too late. Thanks for the heads up. So first part of your question, so to shorten and to simplify it, he uses a mains transformer designed for 6v6s and uses it to power 6l6s, and it just doesn't have the power capability to do so. And so it causes sag and all those things, which means that the transformer runs very hot because it's being overstressed. He then uses the fan to cool it down. And as I said, I've replaced so many mains transformers on them. I used to keep an upgraded unit on the shelf which could power 6L6s, but also offer the sag and sort of thing that you wanted. And we put those things in, and it sounded identical. Incidentally, that's the one I use in my Americana amp, that transformer. So, on the second side of the UK EU safety legislations, at some point I will do a video on it, but the electrical safety regs 2016 are the ones that apply for amps sold here in the UK. They're easily found online. The guidance is there. It's on the government website with all the links, all the obligations, all the things you have to do. So it's easily found, so there's no excuse as to why these things aren't done. But yeah, you can look them up and go as deep as you want to. But there's absolutely no excuse for anybody to putting an amplifier or any mains powered appliance on the market, selling it to consumers that do not meet the legal requirements. Okay, all the work done on the 2-rock. It's now up and running on the bench. The output sine wave is over there. So I'm trying to use this new tripod and it's not quite behaving, but it's doing 20 volts output into 8 ohms, which puts us at 50 watts, of course. 20 squared, 400, divided by 8 is 50. So it's putting out the output. The sine wave itself looks to be pretty nice. Let me zoom you back out. And if I come in, sorry, gain that one. It overdrives quite nicely as well. So that's where that is. Quite happy with it. It's nice and quiet. Wall consumption is where you'd expect it to be. But currently biased, each output valve there. You've got plate voltage around 350. Biased around 27 milliamps, 27.8 each side, which puts us at 12 watts, which is well below 50%, isn't it, of 30. What's it saying? Yeah, 12. So if we go 12 divided by 30, so they're currently biased at 40%, yet we're still easily doing 20 watts with no crossover distortion. So no wonder those 6L6s last seemingly forever. They're biased really cool. The amp produces great power and they're completely understressed. Yeah, wonderful. Good news. So yeah, we'll call this one good. I just need to do the final bits and pieces on the pat test. And then, yeah, it can go back in its cabinet. But the amp that... Well, yeah, let's talk about the hum. It must be an environmental thing at the owner's house. It has to be, because it's... Well, there's no issue here, and I can't find an issue with it. So, yeah, it has to be an environmental thing going on. But there's... Honestly, this thing is... If it wasn't for the jewel light on the front of the amplifier, you wouldn't know this thing was switched on. That's how quiet it is. And that's not hyperbole or anything like that. That's just the way it is. It is so quiet. Whisper, whisper quiet. Which is, a testament really to how amps can be built if the designer knows what they're doing. So yeah, we'll call this one complete. And unless you hear of anything else, we assume that the customer's happy with it too. The Melter, great name, says, "Hi Chris, thanks you for the process that you took us through to work out the issues with the Selmer, the treble and bass Mark 1. As a guitar player, not an electronics engineer, who'd like to have some clue about how these amps work, your explanations make it possible for me to follow along without scratching my head trying to grasp the concepts. Thank you for taking the time." I've just dropped a washer. "Thank you for taking time to film, edit and post these videos. Cheers." Do you know what? You are more than welcome. And that's the whole point of this channel. I try and keep it jargon free. I try and keep it so the casual viewer can understand. A lot of people moan about that and say I should go into more detail, but as I said, there's other channels that do that already, and why would I compete with those? I want to offer something different. A lot of people just want to see inside what's going on and have a basic understanding of what's going on. For those who are more technical, yes, a lot of it is very simple stuff. But again, it's deliberate. You must remember, a lot of people don't understand how valves work, how circuits work. And if I say this is an output transformer, a lot of people don't know what that is, and that's kind of their technical level. And so we don't want to confuse those people. We want to keep these things nice and light and easy to understand and follow along. And most people just want to see inside stuff and see what's going on and see how I work and see what's going on and what we're doing and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm glad you get a lot out of this channel. It's exactly what I'm trying to achieve, and I really appreciate that comment. Regular commenter Russ says, "Vertical view of the Selma guts on the Lazy Susan. Vertigo is a nightmare. I can't look at the vertical view of the old Pan Am building in New York. That really turns my stomach." A lot of people have it, that top-down view. It just triggers something inside, doesn't it? And yeah, they really struggle with it. Mustard and gold Weimer caps. Yeah, the old gold Weimers as well. I wonder how many of those are out of spec. Well, there is that, and there are ways to test these things, of course. I'd also swap out the other two AX7s as they're probably also shot. Well, again, we test those. We never assume. Sounds like a couple of old dirty pots there too. It's all service stuff for us. Especially the bias trimmer. Brilliant episode and a nice long one. Thanks for your efforts. It's funny, isn't it? Some people moan about the length of the videos and other people want them to be longer. I can never win. I can never win. I know I should... I know the channel would do better, be more successful if the most of the videos were shorter and I edited them quicker, etc., etc. But it's my channel and I'm not going to do that, so deal with it. Brilliant episode. Love the intro and sign off. Are those your beehives? I wouldn't have thought you have the time, but all the power to you if they are. They're not my beehives. They are the farmers here on the farm. He's got quite a few little projects going on now. So because they've got the farm shop open, he's going to try and sell his own bee juice. So he's got a couple of hives over there. I do love the bees, I do like to see them. Some people hate them, don't they? They just hate bees flying around. But I just think, just little creatures out there living their life. Let them get on with it. They rarely sting, if at all. Yeah. The hives here, from where I'm sitting now, just the other side of that hedgerow where Tremolo normally hunts. So it's probably, they're probably 20, 25 metres away from me. And I rarely see a bee in here, and if I do, I let it out the window. Yeah, they're just not a problem. And when they when those, what am I trying to say? When the honey is ready, I will be buying some. Michael Knight says, nice work, Rift. Clap, 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 clap. I'm curious about something regarding your mains power in the UK, though. I always assume that you Brits had 2 live wires and a ground or earth, as you guys usually refer to it. Earth is correct. But I've heard you say that we're switching both the hot and neutral when referring to a DP-DT power switch, DPST. Does that mean you have one hot wire and a neutral at 0 volts with respect to ground, and 240 volts from hot to neutral, or are both wires hot with respect to ground or earth? We have, so for single phase supplies, 3 phases also available for commercial stuff. 3 wires. You've got a live in the neutral, and you've got your earth wire. Live is brown, neutral is blue, earth wire is green with a yellow stripe. The live is well, this is where it gets a little confusing. 240 is what we get out the wall, plus or minus 10%. In Europe, they get 220, but when the EU harmonised everything, rather than actually make the physical changes, they just harmonised everything to 230 plus or minus a tolerance. So officially we are 230 volts, even though what we get out of the wall is often, especially on older buildings, 240, plus or minus whatever it is. You can get up to 252 out of the wall some days. So that's that, but officially we are 230 to be in line with Europe, but that's just a harmonisation fudge factor thing. What we actually get out of the wall is 240. So we've got 1 live and 1 neutral. Now, with the potential difference between those is 240 volts from the live, or the hot, as the Americans like to call it. And the neutral is 0 volts, potential reference to earth, and the live is 240 across the 2. But the neutral just completes the circuit, and obviously AC it goes back and forth, doesn't it? So that's what it is, yeah. Now, why do we need to switch both? Because that's what the regulations say. For single phase equipment, running under the low voltage directive, which is anything running between 50 and 1000 volts, we need you must have a disconnect device. Must, not shall or should or could or whatever. Must. It's absolute. It's no questions asked on that one. You must have a disconnect device, and the function of that is that it means the device can be completely disconnected from its supply. There are 2 ways to do your disconnect device. You can either if you have a hardwired mains cable, then your on-off switch must break both of those at the same time. Again, must. Coincidentally, the Lazy J, which is still on the bench, I'll talk about that in a minute. He's got a hardwired mains cable, but he's only switching the live, so that's one of the reasons it's illegal. The other way you can do a disconnect device is with an IEC cable and socket. So when you unplug it, obviously both the live and the neutral are disconnected at the same time. If you're doing a hardwired mains cable, as I said, they are legal, but you must switch both the live and neutral with your on-off switch at the same time. The safety earth, the earth wire, if that cable gets pulled out, if someone trips over it or something, the safety earth must be the last thing that gets disconnected. So that wire needs to remain longer than the live and the neutral. So they can disconnect, be pulled out and break, but your safety earth still connects the chassis, and therefore you, via extension, via your guitar cable and your guitar strings, you're always protected by safety earth. And so the rest of the mains wiring in the building with your RCDs and stuff can protect you. And again, if you read the regs, you'd understand why that's not legal. But yeah, anyway, thank you, Michael. Yeah, that's the way it works. We've got 1 live, 1 neutral, 1 safety earth. 4 inches of yellow. Alex Bale says, what do you mean when you ask people to join the channel, Chris, as opposed to subscribe? Well, if you watch on a desktop, you'll see below the videos there is a join button. And I have 3 levels of membership where, if you are feeling super generous, as I always say, you can become a channel member for a small fee, or a medium fee, or a large fee, and that just support the channel financially. And there are certain benefits to doing that. So it's always optional, of course. You don't have to. I just appreciate those who do. Or you can just subscribe, but that's what I mean by join the channel. You'll notice on some YouTube channels they do a Patreon thing. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep it all on YouTube, just to simplify everything. But yeah, that's what I mean, Alex. Starting to make progress. Andrew Gillis says, viewing from the drone or airship overhead down at the Lazy Susan, no solder at step down resistor number 1 next to those new 32 microfarad supply caps. Hold on. Soldered, and the grounds are all linked. This terminal is unused. Is that what you meant? That's why there's no solder. But yeah, there's no issue there. A lot of you also pointed out, I should say, that certain values are written on the chassis itself. Now, I don't know if a previous tech has written, God, I can't talk today, those, or if that's factory, but I rarely trust chassis markings anyway. I like to go by the schematics. So yeah, I did see those there, but you never know. If quite often techs will not have the correct values to hand, and therefore they will just stick in what they've got. And then, you could incorrectly assume that what is installed is correct when it's actually not. Whether it actually makes a difference or not is irrelevant. For example, over here, you can see previous tech has written on the bias values for those 2 old, well, I assume for the EL34s that were in there, and that's what he'd biased them up to. So, I take that with a pinch of salt, because, is that where you want them to be? Is that the optimal point? Who knows? You've got to stick it on the scope and measure it properly, right? And finally, speaking of the J20, why is it still here? Well, it did actually, customer collected it, took it home with him, called me, I think it was the day after, and said he wasn't sure if the amp still had a fault or whether that's just how it is. So he brought it into me on Saturday morning, and he brought his guitar with him as well, plugged into it. I plugged into it first with my guitar, played it, sounded exactly like J20s do, to be honest, with Tweed Deluxe. He did admit they'd never owned a Tweed amp before, so it was a bit new to him, the way these things play, etc, etc, etc. But he demonstrated something to me which I have to admit I hadn't spotted yet, was that he referred to it as lower treble, or was it upper mid? Upper mid, lower treble, that crossover point where with his guitar, which was a Gretsch Falcon, if he set the amp for clean tones and had the tone control exactly at the point he wanted, it'd be great. But when he overdrove the amp, that particular frequency changed in a way he didn't like. Now, if he then set the amp for an overdrive tone and got that frequency where he wanted, but then rolled it off and cleaned it up, again, it changed in a way he didn't like. So we were going through the amp, trying some different value tone caps and things, just tweaking it for him. The amp then started to hum. One of the 6L6s was red plating, and then it kind of lost all power and was spluttering. So we switched the amp off. I was going through it trying to work out what was going on. I discovered that on V3, so the right hand 6L6 when you view it from the rear, there were a couple of volts DC on pin 5. So very interesting. Couldn't work out where that come from. And obviously that's why that one was red plating. Replace the preceding coupling cap, because that's often the cause. Maybe there's a little bit of a DC leak there. And bear in mind, this amp had already had a good couple of hours burning on the bench with zero issues, so clearly something had changed. I replaced that cap, a mustard cap, 100 nanofarad. No difference. Really interesting, right? And what I discovered is that the board material had gone ever so slightly conductive, which again wouldn't happen. Like all those old Fenders do eventually, wouldn't happen if you'd used a sturdier board material, like FR4, for example. So unfortunately, the 6L6s, the brand new set that I just stuck in there for him, are now dead and gone. So I've had to fix the conductive board, but for him, fit him a new set of 6L6s, and now it's running on the bench and it's running great. So yeah, quite frustrating because I've had to cover the cost of that, even though it's a design fault with the amplifier. But it's not the customer's fault, is it? It's not the customer's fault. So he shouldn't have to cover that. And I'm down a set of 6L6s and another couple of hours labour. So don't use that material to build your guitar amps. Use FR4. Otherwise, you'll get conductive issues down the line. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, as always, please give this video a thumbs up, or your comments and questions down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you're feeling super generous, why not join the channel like these guys have, and I will catch you all at the next one.